Western esotericism is a very wide family of individually grouped subsects, essentially. And it's a lot like religion, actually. There's a lot of religions in the world, and a lot of those religions share similar concepts. The Abrahamic religions, for example, all share essentially the same Old Testament, and then get into bloody wars over whose interpretation or newer testaments or what have you are correct. Dogma has been a thing that I have opposed all of my life. And what I have found is that the root, understanding where the root of everything comes from, helps me make my own decisions or informed decisions, as it were. And otherwise, you're just kind of reading something and hoping that it's real or it comes from a proper place or what have you. This is why I stress the importance of learning, if you're in esotericism, that you learn Greek and Hebrew letters and their numeric equivalents, the ability to look at older texts, biblical texts, and be able to ascertain what they're saying without the aid of a translator or innuendo is vital. I am the Desert Viking. Welcome to my channel. And today we are going to discuss the Western esotericism family tree. Now, where this all began, what inspired this particular video, there's a couple things. For one, I'm writing a set of esoteric packets for our seekers and other degreed Masons who are interested in esotericism in general. There's not a lot out there, and a lot of people feel lost. They don't know where to begin, or they don't know what to look for. There's just no material. So I put together some packets for them. And in having those packets peer-reviewed, a great comment that came back was that I was focused mainly on Western esotericism and particular branches of Western esotericism. So while I am portraying an overall esoteric packet, I'm only really giving a subset, right? My subset. And that's fair. And that made me start thinking, like, we need to start looking at some of these other things, or at least let them be known. And another thing, through my studies, I have started picking up some of the works of Rudolf Steiner. Rudolf Steiner was an occultist and esotericist and psychologist from the late 1800s into the early 20th century, 1900s. And he was also a theosophist. And so we're going to be doing some videos on some of Rudolf Steiner's work here in the short-term future, discussing his views on such things as the trichotomy of Christ, Ahriman, and Lucifer. But a lot of that stuff out there today, when I do my research, comes from very New Age, cosmic type sources, which do not resonate with me generally. And that makes sense, because as you're going to see, the New Age movement stemmed from theosophy. So it makes sense. Knowing where the roots of these things come from is important. And that's not to disregard New Age. And I'll say that again when we get into New Age stuff. I'm not saying it's wrong at all. It just does not resonate with me mostly. There's some pieces that I do resonate with, but mostly. And I'd actually like to go a little bit further. I'm not going to do it in this video, but this video only starts with essentially mainly the 1600s, to be honest, and on. There's a whole lot of things that happened before that in the Dark Ages. So, you can take this tree all the way back to antiquity and before that to Egypt. And that's probably worth exploring. So that's something I might want to do, especially when you start dealing with the religions and watching those branch out. Because there's multiple sects of, say, Christianity. And they all kind of believe in generally the same things with minor differences that cause some disagreements, we'll say. And understanding where the root of all those come from is important, because everything derives in that instance from the Bible, and the Bible was written originally in Hebrew and Greek. And the thing with those languages, number one, the people that wrote those wrote a lot of things encoded to convey a message esoterically through exoteric means. So this is why, for example, I don't take the Bible literally. As a Gnostic, I don't take the Bible literally. I look for the symbology and the allegories that are sitting in there, and then the gematria, the literal Kabbalah, as it were, on the numeric values and what are they pointing to. Also understanding that something like biblical Hebrew, the words had multiple meanings. So when a translator would go through and translate, even if he had the best intentions to try to provide an accurate translation, you were going off of his interpretation of what those words meant in the context that they were at or they were giving, which weren't always, those were his interpretations. Because again, holy writings are based off of allegory and esoteric interpretation, which means it's the beauty of esotericism is that we all can come up with different ideas for the same general concepts, and they're all equally valid, which breaks some people's minds, I understand. But it's true. This is why you can't discount any of the little, like New Age or any of the things that may not resonate with you. Doesn't mean they're wrong. They resonate with other people, and they're just as valid. So knowing where those come from helps inform us. And then, of course, the holy writings were truncated, edited, approved, sanitized, and approved at the Council of Nicaea in 326 of the Common Era. And then by the mid to late 400s, the Roman Church pretty much stamped down on anything that wasn't what they told you to believe, and everything else was heresy, and you would be put to death. So in my opinion, the late 300s to middle 400s, that began a dark age, a spiritual dark age that we have not yet recovered from. In fact, we have gone overboard into materialism and other things, but this is not the video for that, so we'll kind of refrain. But what I want to go into now is we're going to look at the family tree of Western esotericism. And I will point this out. This is not an original idea, meaning I have seen this in other places, and I just put together my own version. So I'm going to go through my own version it's a couple slides, just showing it's an image of these things. But you may find other things like this out there on YouTube and other places online, and that's great. This is my version. So let's check out Western esotericism, where it originated, and how all the branches come out to be where they are. And let's see where you may land on this tree. All right. So we see at the very top of this slide here, we have several sources, and each of these sources can quite honestly have their own slides. But we're going to condense these down we have 6 different things. We have Gnosticism, which existed probably up from 10th century BC in that time frame, all the way through 400 of the Common Era, 500 of the Common Era, before the Roman Church basically made this punishable by death. They did not like Gnosticism. Neoplatonism, Hermeticism, the Kabbalah, and Eastern religions all feed into Western esotericism, as well as the Egyptian pantheon and the Egyptian teachings, the mystery schools, which flow through Egypt and Greece and make their way and feed into this thing called Western esotericism. So all of these things root into this thing called Western esotericism. Now, from here, we have 2 primary splits. If we're going off to the right, we have Swedenborgianism, which I have no idea really what that is or what that entails other than a cursory look. But we can see from this branch, we have all kinds of things from the late 1700s to the early 1900s. Different churches that have sprung up there. The New Church, the Church of Christ, Scientist, National Spiritualist Association of Churches, the Brazilian Spiritist Federation, and the Religious Science. And off to the left, we have the Knights Templar, and I included them because they gathered a lot of this information while on the Crusades, and then they were, of course, suppressed, and their teachings and their knights went underground, but they helped form some other orders. So we can see from here, we have Rosicrucianism, which started with the manifestos from 1610 to 1617. And that would evolve into the Order of the Golden and Rosy Cross in the 1750s, which would then, in the 1865, form the Societas Rosicruciana in Anglia, which still exists today, to be a member of this organization. And there are, in Anglia, I believe, is in England, but all of the different continents, like North America, or the United States has its own version. You have to be a Master Mason to be considered into this order. And we can see that flows down into the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn as a Rosicrucian. But you see the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn also is a part or feeds into the teachings and the writings of Eliphas Levi, who wrote Transcendental Magic, amongst other things. And a lot of his work is found here. And Levi's work also makes its way to Helena Blavatsky, who forms Theosophy. And Helena Blavatsky also gets her information from Spiritism, which stemmed from Spiritualism, which was originated by the Fox sisters. So all of those form Theosophy, and we have the Theosophical Society, which we're going to look at in the next slide, and we're going to see what's fed from these things. You can see Spiritualism, ultimately, and New Thought. Both of these create New Age thinking later on, in the 20th century and today. We also have Freemasonry, stemming from the Knights Templar and Western esotericism in general. We know that the first writings of Freemasonry are the Regius poem in 1380. We know that the Knights Templar were put down in 1314 officially. They went underground. Now this presumes, it presumes that the Knights Templar have a hand in creating the Freemasons. There is no actual document that ties that together, saying it is. So it is something I believe, but I am making this a point. I'm not the arbitrator of all knowledge and truth. That's just my guess. The thing that resonates most with me. From Freemasonry, we can see that the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints was inspired, Joseph Smith, and he created the Mormon Church. Now, also from the Freemasons, we have Martinez Pascali, who founded the Elohist Cohens in 1767. This was a theurgical priesthood of Freemasons, essentially. You had to be a Freemason, and they studied ceremonial magic and theurgy. And theurgy is the practice of uniting oneself with God through ceremonial magic and ritual. You may see some of that in the Catholic Church, for example. Having been raised Catholic, there's a lot of parallels between theurgy and Catholicism, or at least in the church. Elohist Cohen lasted until Pascali's death in 1774. So you see, it didn't last very long. It lasted about 7 years. And then when he died, that was pretty much it. But he had a student named St. Martin. And St. Martin would go on to form the Martinist order in 1886. And the Martinist order, so St. Martin disavowed theurgy. He did not believe that ceremonial magic or theurgy was required to unite with God. Instead, he believed that came about through mysticism, which is one of the paths of the occult lore, right? You have the path of the mystic, the path of the mage, and the path of basically the shaman. I'm probably getting those wrong. But that's how, as I understand them, there's three main paths. So he believed in the path of the mystic, which was love. And he was heavily inspired by who I call French Jesus, because I can't remember the guy's name. But he was a big-time French prophet, essentially, who was very Christ-like and inspired St. Martin, who created the Martinist order, which today you can join the Martinist order by it's an appendant body of Amorc, and the Martinist order is considered to be a Christian Kabbalah organization. I can't really delve into anything more than what you could find on the internet with it, but if you are interested in mystical Christianity and philosophy, the Martinist order is going to be something that you'll find to be quite interesting. Now, moving on to the next slide here. If we can get technology to play nice with me. All right. So here we have the 20th century. So we can see the Order of the Golden Dawn. Ultimately, we have Aleister Crowley, who comes from the Golden Dawn. He forms his own thing called Thelema. And Thelema is basically Aleister Crowley's religion, philosophy, for lack of a better word. And from Thelema stems two things: the Ordo Templi Orientis, OTO, which was a Masonic order back in the day and is now, in its current form, it's open to men and women. And this right here, OTO, OTO is an aggressive, I'm going to call it an aggressive school of esoteric thought. They're very, I consider them reckless. I know other people may say otherwise, and that's fine. From what I know of OTO, they're very hard-nosed, hardcore, and they do things that I question in terms of safety. We'll just say that they're very fearless when it comes to that. But then we also have the AA created, and from Thelema, of course, spins off in 1966, Anton LaVey and his thing. So, and you can also see that Thelema also spawns off from Ron Hubbard, and we have the Church of Scientology. And we also see this line extend to UFO religions, and we get this thing called Raelianism, which deals with otherworldly, alien-type creatures, for lack of a better word. I'm not super versed in this, to be honest, but UFO religions are all about star seeds and things of that nature, and we've come from other worlds, and you're inhabited by beings from other worlds, other star systems, right? That's kind of what these are, in a very condensed nutshell. Of course, we had spiritualism and New Thought, and these all come down into the New Age movement, along with the Theosophical Society feeding into the New Age movement. So the New Age movement there's a lot of stuff online teaching esotericism, or it says it's esoteric, and when you hear them talk, it's very cosmic-y, very quote-unquote New Agey. Those are stemming from 1800s thoughts on spiritualism and theosophical ideas. So Rudolf Steiner, Blavatsky, those are all influencers of the New Age movement on top of other things. So when we start talking about Rudolf Steiner, as we said earlier, Rudolf Steiner stems from the Theosophical Society. And here he is right here on the tree, founding the we're going to try to speak. This word. It's not going to come out of my mouth today, sorry. He forms this society. So be aware of that the origins. You can climb your way up the tree. Now over to the left, we had Thelema also influence Gerald Gardner. So Gerald Gardner was he was into the Order of the Golden Dawn. I don't think he was in the Order of the Golden Dawn. He was probably too young to be in it at the time. But he took that and Crowley's ideas, and he kind of morphed and mixed those all together and created Wicca in the 50s. So Wicca is not an ancient religion, as some might have you believe. It was created in the 50s by a guy named Gerald Gardner, who was influenced heavily by the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn and Aleister Crowley's teachings. And then he took it upon himself to make some changes as well. So as an example, one thing that Gardner did, he didn't see a difference in the ritual tools of a sword and the ritual knife. So standard or classically, the dagger, the ritual knife, it represents the element of air in the east, and the sword represented fire in the south. Well, he combined those, and he just basically said a dagger and a sword are the same thing, so they're in the south. And he moved the wand to the east. And that bled over into a lot of different movements. So any modern shamanistic type religion, Druidism. One of the first Druid books I started reading in the 90s followed Gerald Gardner's teachings for the most part. And it didn't use his name and it didn't use Wicca, but all the elements and stuff were set up like he did. So he had a big influence on all of the nature religions that spawned. We can also see the Theosophical Society created Ariosophy, another word that's not going to come out of my mouth, but that created the Thule Society. And the Thule Society was not a good thing in my opinion. That's, of course, the Nazis were big into the Thule Society. But we see from the Thule Society, we get neo-paganism starts to form, and we start to see in the 20th century and even in today, all of the old religions making a comeback. So the Celtic religions, heathenry, which are the Vikings, the Nordic faith, and Hellenism, the Greek, worshiping the Greek gods. And then you have the eclectics spawning off that. So that's where your Druidry and your goddess movement come from. And those are also linked as well to Wicca. So from here, we're able to see the various branches of the 20th century and how all of these things spawned from the original, from Western esotericism. So all of these things they fall under the umbrella, but you can tell, and you should know, a lot of these are very, very different from each other. And that's what kind of spawns into the last part of this video. Part of where any disagreements that I may have with people usually stem from the fact that we sit on different parts of the tree. So we share the fact that we're esoteric, but that's it. And like, for example, I have nothing to do with anything Anton LaVey would have done that repels me. I have nothing to the Thule Society or any of that repels me. Or Crowley, to be honest, is not something that excites me and inspires me to study on anything as well. I've got a couple of his books because he was a mad genius in my opinion, but a lot of what he did is not something that rings bells in me, so to speak. But I can have talks with people in the OTO and we can find common ground on quite a bit. Because if you know we share roots in the Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn. So that helps, right? But speaking with people from the New Age perspective can be challenging for me because I don't resonate very well with most of that. Not all of it. So we share a connection in some theosophical philosophies that I agree with or find commonality with. But a lot of the approach of the New Age is just we're on different parts of the tree. And that's fine. Because multiple paths lead up the same mountain and there's different mountains and we are all going to have the same view at the end, really, is what it boils down to. But just be aware that when it comes to dogma, sticking yourself to one part of the tree at the expense of all the others, you're missing out on other perspectives. And I know there's some perspectives like I'm not interested at all in what Anton LaVey's church preaches because none of that stuff is anything that I'm into. But there are some things with the New Age movement that I might consider. Because honestly, none of us knows. None of us has the answer. None of us is like, we're not gifted with the all-seeing eye and knowing. We might think we are. And a lot of people I find on YouTube and whatnot come off as if they are gurus and experts. But really, they heard that from someone else and they're preaching it now. And that's fine. It's resonating with them and they're excited to talk about it. And I get that. And there's nothing wrong with that. I've done the same thing. But know where they're coming from. And know at the end of the day, from the holy writings on down, everything we talk about in esotericism at one point originated from somebody going, I'm inspired by what I'm going to call God or the masters or whatever. Write it down. And you got to trust me, bro. Just trust me. This is the truth. And that's where you got to be careful because there's a lot of trust me bros. And part of the Theosophical Society Blavatsky got busted on was she got her information from the masters, but then they found out later like she was plagiarizing other books. And since she English, she synthesized a lot of information, which was great. But then she claimed that it was given to her by the master, so that kind of stains it. Hermetic Order of the Golden Dawn, same thing. Mathers said he was getting all the stuff from the chiefs. You know, they invented some great things like the lesser banishing ritual. The pentagram it's an amazing banishment tool. But at the end of the day, he was lying, and he got caught on it. He got called out for lying and caught. There were no chiefs. He basically, trust me, bro, wrote a bunch of stuff down. He synthesized a lot of older work from like Levi and on up, and Agrippa, etc. And he formed a very tight school of thought that I think is brilliant. And it's the last time we've ever had something like that. But trust me, bro, there were no chiefs. There was no masters from another plane. That was Mathers sitting down and writing all that stuff up himself, synthesizing the information from other sources. All the way on up. It's like the concept of a Lucifer. He's in the Bible once, and it's not even a proper name. In Hebrew, it meant Venus. Somehow, somewhere, it became the name of the devil. But then in New Age thought, Lucifer is one end of a pole of actions, opposing another thing called Ahriman, which is a Persian dark god. So that'll be an interesting video to talk about that, because it kind of fits into Kabbalah and the Tree of Life. We just gave the two pillars different names. But again, someone sat down, some theologian sat down in the Middle Ages, somewhere in 1500s, and said, Lucifer is the name of the devil. And the church said, that sounds great. Make it so. Everyone, Lucifer is the name of the devil. If you disagree, you're a heretic and you'll die. And after a little while, that just became common knowledge. Now Lucifer is the name of the devil. Even though it's not mentioned in the Bible and it was never meant to be a proper name. And it's Latin. And the devil's older than Latin. Why would he name himself that? Why would he have that name? Right. But people conflate those two things as one. Holy writing, same deal. Hebrew, complicated language, but simple at the same time. One word, many meanings. Someone translated it. Trust me, bro, this is the translation. This is inspired by God. And that the Holy Bible's been mistranslated and retranslated a bunch of times so that you can actually walk through the old, from the source all the way up to today and see all the differences. They're well documented. The meaning changes in many places quite drastically. But we treat that as the exoteric, solid word of truth, which is impossible. It's not logical. It's not logical to have two different things that mean two different things and say they're both the truth. But we do. So the point of that is to know the root, know where things came from. Trust me, bro, is everywhere. I'm not a guru. I don't have all the answers. I follow what resonates with me. I suspect you do the same. Always keep an open mind and perspective when someone's sharing information with you, because you don't know everything. I don't know everything, and part of this journey is learning together. So thanks for listening. I will be putting together some Rudolf Steiner talks here in the very short term. I'm doing some study on him, and I think it'll be some fascinating stuff to discuss. So if you have any comments, leave them below. I appreciate you checking in. If you'd like to give me a like, subscribe, etc. You know the drill. Get on our Discord, say hi, participate in the talks. I'd love to have a conversation. Till next time, guys, stay safe, stay knowledgeable, stay inquisitive, be open-minded. We'll see you next time.